So you walk out of the meeting, right? And you realize you made this minor factual error, like just a tiny mistake.
Right, happens to all of us.
Exactly. But by the time you reach your car in the parking lot, your internal monologue hasn't just, corrected the fact. It has completely dismantled your entire career.
Oh, yeah. Your intelligence, your self-worth, everything.
It's totally gone. And you're just standing there wondering how I made a mistake. Turns into, like, I am a mistake in literally 45 seconds.
It's a really profound cognitive leap, and yet it happens so automatically that we rarely even notice the transition.
Yeah, it's seamless.
Right. Because we believe we're just engaging in responsible self-improvement, like we're just auditing our own performance. But underneath that, there's a much more destructive psychological mechanism that's just taking over completely.
And that invisible line between growth and insecurity, well, that is exactly what we're unpacking today in this deep dive.
It's such a crucial topic.
It really is. So our source material for this deep dive is this really brilliant piece by the Finch Q team, and it's called The Art of Questioning Yourself Without Doubting Yourself.
Great title, by the way.
Right. So good. And the mission here today is to decode this quiet but vital skill. We want to figure out how to build a framework for rigorous self-examination without just completely drowning in self-criticism.
Which is a tough balance to strike.
Oh, absolutely, because there's this core paradox at the heart of the text. Questioning yourself and doubting yourself, they sound like they are the exact same cognitive process.
On the surface, sure.
But one opens the door to adaptation, and the other just, locks it from the inside.
Yeah, to dismantle that paradox, we really have to look closely at the actual anatomy of a question.
Okay, let's break that down.
So the fundamental difference between healthy questioning and toxic doubt, it basically lies in their target. Like, what are you aiming at? Healthy questioning is directed at the process, or the strategy, or just the isolated behavior. So it asks these open-ended queries like, what variable am I missing here? Or how can I improve this specific workflow?
So it's very specific.
Very specific. But doubt, conversely, is just an assassination of character.
Wow, yeah.
It bypasses the behavior entirely and attacks your identity. So it asks things like, who do you think you are? Or it relies on these absolute statements, like, you always miss something.
You're always messing up.
Exactly.
The questioning keeps the prefrontal cortex, which is like the logical, problem-solving part of the brain, engaged.
Yes.
But doubt bypasses that completely and goes straight for the emotional center.
I was thinking about it like, it's the difference between a scientist who's carefully auditing a failed experiment, checking if the temperature was too high.
Right, looking at the variables.
Yeah, versus someone who walks into the lab, looks at the exact same failed experiment, and just burns the entire building down because the scientist is a fraud. That is a perfect analogy. You eliminate all future agency when you attack the identity like that.
Because there's no room to grow if the core is rotten.
Exactly. And that elimination of agency is why the Finch Q team points out that we have to completely redefine our cultural understanding of confidence.
Oh, this part was fascinating. Because we get confidence so wrong.
We really do. We're so heavily conditioned to view confidence as absolute certainty.
Like the person who never second-guesses themselves.
Right, the one who just charges forward with unwavering rigidity. And we often mistake that rigidity for strength. But mistaking certainty for wisdom is incredibly dangerous.
Because the world changes.
Exactly. Rigid people repeat old mistakes because, well, the familiar feels safe to them, and they will defend a position long after the underlying facts have changed.
So real confidence isn't the absence of internal questions at all.
Not even a little bit.
Mature confidence is actually the willingness to act responsibly without perfect certainty.
That's the key right there.
Right. Like, confident people don't silence their questions. They actually learn to move with them. They accept that they might be wrong, but they trust their ability to correct the course as they go.
And that ties directly into how doubt frequently masquerades as humility, which I think is one of the most insidious tricks our psychology plays on us.
Oh, I do this all the time.
We all do. People will adopt this posture of intense self-doubt, but they frame it as being grounded or realistic.
Yeah, they say things like, oh, I shouldn't trust myself too much, or I'm just trying to be humble here.
Exactly. But true humility is an expansive state. It says, I don't know everything, but I have the capacity to learn. It preserves your agency.
Well, doubt is really just a form of self-shrinking.
Yes.
It's saying, I cannot trust myself to learn. And when you look at the mechanics of it, like the text says, that isn't humility at all. It's ego protection.
100%. It's a defensive crouch disguised as a virtue.
Because if you convince yourself you lack the capacity to adapt, well, you conveniently lower the bar so far that you never even have to take the risk of trying and failing.
You let yourself off the hook before you even start. And that's exactly the kind of cognitive distortion that leads us into what the authors call the inner courtroom.
The inner courtroom. Yeah, let's get into that.
So when we transition from looking at what doubt is to how it actually operates in real time, we see this really stark division between self-examination and self-attack.
Okay.
Self-examination is highly specific, like, I interrupted my colleague twice in that presentation. I need to practice active listening.
So again, isolating a variable.
Right, but self-attack is global. It's,
Yeah.
I am terrible with people. I always ruin collaborative moments.
It's the inner coach versus the inner prosecutor.
Yes, that's exactly the framework.
And the prosecutor doesn't want to solve the problem, right? The prosecutor just wants conviction.
They're out for blood.
Yeah. It cross-examines you. It selectively gathers all this evidence from your past failures to prove a pattern. And it basically assumes guilt right out of the gate.
It asks, what does this failure prove about your inherent worth?
Right, whereas the coach looks at the exact same failure and asks, what does this data teach us about what we need next time?
It's a completely different orientation to the same event. And here is where we have to address a major misconception, I think. Because a lot of highly driven people, they actually cling to their inner prosecutor.
Well, yeah, let me push back on this exact point for a second on behalf of the listener. Because this is so deeply ingrained in corporate culture, academic culture, basically everywhere.
Right.
Isn't being tough on yourself just the price of admission for high performance? Like, if I stop playing the prosecutor, if I let myself off the hook, won't I just become complacent?
It's the classic fear of losing your edge.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of people believe that brutality is practically synonymous with honesty and accountability.
It's such a pervasive belief. But neurologically speaking, the text makes it clear that this is entirely backward. Brutality does not equal honesty.
It doesn't.
No. In fact, cruelty makes objective honesty nearly impossible.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, think about what happens when you deploy the prosecutor's voice. When a simple error becomes a global threat to your identity, like saying, I am a failure, your nervous system literally cannot distinguish between a physical threat and a psychological one.
Oh, wow. So your body reacts like there's a tiger in the room.
Exactly. Your amygdala hijacks the brain. You go straight into a state of fight, flight, or freeze.
And your vision literally and cognitively narrows.
Precisely. When the mind is forced into a defensive posture like that, it fundamentally avoids looking clearly at the root problem.
Because it's too busy surviving.
Yes, you cannot accurately audit a mistake, look at your own flaws, or take in complex feedback when you are simultaneously expending all of your cognitive energy just defending your basic right to exist.
That makes so much sense. So a safer internal environment, like the coach's voice, doesn't lower your standards at all.
Not at all. It actually allows for much more rigorous, accurate self-reflection because the threat response is deactivated. You aren't terrified of what you might find when you look at yourself.
So by using cruelty as a motivational tool, we're basically actively blinding ourselves to the actual lessons. We are triggering our own defense mechanisms against our own thoughts.
Exactly. And the antidote to this, neurologically speaking, is metacognition.
Metacognition, meaning thinking about your thinking.
Right. It's the cognitive wedge that separates the stimulus from the response. It's your capacity to observe a thought without instantly fusing with it.
So if I have the thought, I am completely incompetent, I don't just accept it.
No, metacognition allows you to step back and observe that thought as just an event happening in your mind, not as an objective fact about reality.
You create this split-second gap.
Yes, a gap where you can ask, is there actual evidence for this, or is this just my anxiety speaking right now?
You are not the thought. You are the observer of the thought. And that synaptic space between the thought and your identity, I guess that's where all of your agency lives.
It is.
But, and I know this from personal experience, because our nervous systems are often already so keyed up, even when we know we should use metacognition, we still fall into that defensive freeze state anyway.
Of course we do.
And when the brain is frozen, but is desperate to solve this perceived threat, it resorts to rumination.
Oh, rumination. And there is a massive deception our brains pull on us right here. which is confusing reflection with rumination.
because they feel so similar internally.
They feel identical. Both involve intense mental focus on a problem, but their mechanics are just entirely different. Reflection is linear. It actually moves toward a destination.
Like it leads to a decision or a behavioral adjustment.
Right. Or sometimes just acceptance of something you can't control. But rumination is circular. It's the act of asking the exact same unanswerable, painful question for hours on end without changing a single variable.
It's like a car stuck in the mud. You press the gas thinking you're, expending energy and moving forward, but the wheels are just spinning.
Just burning fuel.
Yeah, and you aren't just staying in place. You are actively digging the tires deeper into the rut.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it, because in neurological terms, rumination just reinforces those anxious neural pathways, which makes it even harder to get out next time. The cognitive load of rumination is exhausting, but it yields zero forward momentum.
So how do we know when we're doing it?
Well, the Finch-Q framework provides very clean rule of thumb for this.
Oh, I love this rule.
Yeah, it's brilliant. If a question you are asking yourself is not actively generating clarity, a specific action step, compassion, or acceptance, it is no longer a question. It has degraded into a loop.
A loop.
Yeah.
And you cannot think your way out of a loop.
You really can't.
Because the brain can't solve a problem using the exact same hypervigilant state that created the problem in the first place.
Exactly. So the behavioral intervention here is that you have to interrupt the loop physically or environmentally. You have to change the state.
So step away from the desk.
Yes. Take a walk, write the thoughts down on paper just to externalize them, or literally sleep on it to allow the brain to process the emotional charge.
Because sometimes wisdom just requires recognizing that you've reached the absolute limit of useful analysis. You just have to swallow the discomfort and rest.
Which is hard for overachievers to do.
Super hard. But this fundamentally changes how we view self-trust, doesn't it? Because I think we assume self-trust is built by obsessively analyzing every possible angle so we never ever make a mistake.
Right. We think it comes from having a pristine, perfect track record.
But if rumination is just digging a deeper rut, then self-trust has to come from a totally different mechanism entirely. It has to come from repair.
Exactly. It requires cultivating a repairable relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
Self-trust is built through repeated, lived experiences of showing up for yourself after a failure.
So you make a mistake, you feel that flush of fear, but you take a wise step anyway.
Yes. You fall off course, and instead of calling yourself a failure, you gently bring your focus back. The source material distills this into such a profound operating principle. It says, I do not always get it right, but I do not abandon myself when I get it wrong.
I do not abandon myself when I get it wrong.
Ah.
That is so powerful, because when the inner prosecutor takes over, self-abandonment is exactly what is happening, isn't it?
We just throw ourselves to the wolves the moment we perceive a flaw.
Yeah. But refusing to abandon yourself builds this incredibly resilient foundation. You can actually withstand the friction of failure because you know you aren't going to cognitively punish yourself for it afterward.
You become a safe place to fail. But to operationalize this, to actually prevent the mind from falling back into those deep ruts of rumination, we need a directional anchor.
Right. Because otherwise the brain will just wander back into the mud.
Exactly. And this is where values become a vital cognitive tool. Values don't remove uncertainty. I mean, no psychological tool can eliminate the unknown, but they organize uncertainty.
Without a value system to guide it, self-questioning is just infinite chaos. Because the brain will just generate endless what-ifs. What if I fail? What if they judge me? What if I chose the wrong path?
It never stops.
Right. But when we filter a fear through a core value, we're literally shifting brain activity away from the limbic system's panic response and forcing the executive function to engage.
Yes, you are engaging the higher brain.
So, like, if you value courage, the question stops being, what if I look foolish?
Yeah.
And transforms into, well, what would courage do next in this specific scenario?
Values act as the ultimate sorting mechanism, and the Finch-Q team highlights several powerful real-world applications of this.
Let's talk about those.
Well, look at the psychology of aging, for example. Aging requires constant physical and identity adaptation. Healthy, value-driven questioning looks at a changing body and asks, would using a cane help me preserve my mobility and my agency?
Because it's rooted in the value of independence.
Exactly. But doubt, if it's untethered from values, looks at the cane and says, if I need this, I am finished.
It turns a practical adaptation into a global identity defeat.
It's devastating.
But we see the exact same dynamic in leadership, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the most effective leaders, they live in the tension of the middle. A leader who never questions themselves becomes rigid and authoritarian and, honestly, dangerous.
Right, that's the false confidence we talked about.
Yeah. But a leader who constantly doubts their identity becomes completely paralyzed and unable to steer the ship. So the effective middle ground is using questions to audit the process. Like, what data am I overvaluing? Or whose perspective is missing right now?
And then making a definitive choice based on that.
Right. The questioning exists to improve the decision-making architecture, not to dismantle the leader's authority.
And in personal relationships, this distinction is often the difference between actual conflict resolution and just a toxic spiral.
How so?
Well, healthy self-questioning after an argument asks, was I defensive in my tone? What part of this miscommunication is mine to own? And that specific question, what is mine to own, is a brilliant boundary.
Because it protects your accountability. You're taking responsibility for your actions.
Yes, but it simultaneously protects your dignity.
Because the voice of doubt in a relationship has absolutely no boundaries.
None.
Doubt spirals into, everything's my fault. I'm too difficult to love. What else can I blame myself for just to make this tension go away?
And that is a trauma response, not conflict resolution.
Exactly. So how do we systematically shift gears when we feel that spiral starting? Because it happens so fast.
It does. And the framework provided in the text is beautifully simple, but very cognitively rigorous. It's just ask, anchor, act.
Ask, anchor, act. I love a good three-step sequence.
It's designed to short-circuit the doubt spiral before it deepens the neural rut. So step 1 is ask. You must ask a useful, clarifying, forward-facing question.
So you abandon the, why am I like this?
Right, and you replace it with, what is the next wise step? Or what do I actually know to be objectively true right now?
Okay, and then step 2 is anchor. So you have to tether that open question to something stable.
Exactly.
That could be a core value, like we discussed before with courage or independence. Or it could be a proven historical fact about your past resilience, like, I've survived this before.
Or even the perspective of a trusted mentor. The point is you anchor yourself in the reality that a question is merely a tool for gathering data. It is not a final verdict on your worth.
Right. And then step 3 is the behavioral intervention act.
You must take one small, constructive step in the physical world.
So like, send the clarifying email.
Offer the apology.
Make the minor adjustment to the project.
Even deliberately deciding to step away and rest completely constitutes an action. Because action is the ultimate antidote to the paralysis of self-doubt. It forces your brain out of those abstract, infinite loops and grounds you in present reality problem solving.
So let's run a really specific scenario through this right now, just for anyone listening who might be struggling.
Let's do it.
Okay, imagine you just completely botched a presentation at work. Like, you lost your train of thought, the client looks super bored, and now you are just staring at your laptop. Your chest is tight, and the inner prosecutor is just screaming that you are a complete imposter, and you're definitely going to be fired.
You are deep in the mud, tires spinning.
Exactly. So first, you ask.
Right. Instead of, why do I always ruin things? You stop and ask, what specifically went wrong in the middle section, and what is one thing I can do to clarify the data for the client right now?
Then second, you anchor. You anchor in a fact like, okay, I have successfully delivered dozens of presentations before. This is an isolated failure. It's not my baseline. Or maybe you anchor in a value, like transparency.
And third, you act. You do not rewrite the entire presentation at 11 p.m. fueled by anxiety.
No.
You send a brief professional follow-up email to the client, summarizing the key points that got lost, and then you shut the laptop and you go to sleep.
You interrupt the loop, repair the behavior, and you refuse to abandon yourself.
Exactly.
Just feeling the gear shift in that scenario shows how incredibly powerful this framework is.
It really works.
Bringing it all together, I mean, the central takeaway for this deep dive is a massive paradigm shift in how we view mature confidence. Immature confidence demands perfection.
It needs to be right all the time.
It becomes incredibly defensive at the slightest feedback.
Yeah.
And it just completely collapses when a mistake inevitably happens because the identity is way too fragile to sustain it.
But mature confidence is highly flexible. It can assimilate new, even painful information without the nervous system completely shutting down.
Mature confidence repairs mistakes instead of hiding them. It says, I can question my strategies deeply. I can look unblinkingly at my flaws, and I can still implicitly trust myself to navigate the aftermath.
Because a question is a tool, not a wound.
Use it to carve clarity, not to cut yourself down. We started this deep dive talking about that moment in the parking lot, about how fast we can dismantle our own worth over one little error.
Right.
The goal of this framework isn't to throw the tool of self-examination away entirely. I mean, you need to cut away the behaviors and strategies that aren't working in your life, but you have to learn to hold the tool by the handle, not the blade.
That's a beautiful way to phrase it. And, as a final thought to carry with you today, consider the broader implications of what we've unpacked regarding the nervous system.
Oh, I like where this is going.
We have established that removing cruelty from your own self-examination makes you significantly less defensive, less rigid, and just far more open to objective truth. So how might applying this exact same coach framework change the way you question the people around you, especially the people you disagree with the most deeply?
Oh, wow.
If cruelty and identity attacks shut down your own brain's ability to learn and adapt, what do you think it's doing to theirs?
If we want to change minds, we have to stop triggering defense mechanisms. You have to use the tool and leave the wounds behind. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.